I remember the temperature first. 37 degrees in the Schola dormitory where they trained us. Exactly 37. Climate-controlled to imperial standard. We slept in rows of 60. I was bed 42, third row from the eastern wall. My name was Thomas then. That name lasted 6 years before it became irrelevant. They took us at age 10 from the lower hive orphanages. My mother died in a hab collapse. Structural failure, 70,000 casualties, case file reference 8847, Delta Collapse 7. I remember her face in fragments now. Dark hair, a scar across her left temple from factory work. She sang something, I cannot retrieve the melody. The file corrupted sometime during my 14th year of service. The Schola Progenium instructors told us we were chosen, blessed, destined to serve as the Imperium's enforcers. We learned high Gothic conjugations and bolt pistol maintenance with equal rigor. They showed us picked feeds of Arbites bringing order to chaos. Stern men in black carapace armor, dispensing justice with precise brutality. We were 12 years old when they first made us watch an execution. A heretic, they said. Chaos corruption. The arbiter read the sentence in 7 seconds. The bolt round took the man's head apart in a spray that reached the camera lens. Justice is not contemplation, our instructor said. Justice is function. I processed this as doctrine. I believed it meant something noble. We graduated at 18. They issued us carapace armor that smelled of recycled promethium and machine oil. The armor plates bore scratches from previous wearers. I never learned their names. My designation became Arbitrator Novitiate 4427, Tertius, Hive, Secundus. They assigned me to Precinct Fortress Validus on Hive Tertius, a sprawling cancerous growth of a city containing 140 million registered citizens and perhaps twice that number unregistered. The fortress stood at the Hive's administrative center, a black monument to imperial law 40 stories tall. Inside smelled like incense, weapon discharge, and something else. Something organic and afraid. I catalogued the scent without understanding it yet. Senior arbitrator Cassius met us at intake. He was 47 years old, 29 years of service, faced like carved granite with augmetic eyes that clicked when they focused. He looked at our formation of 32 new arbitrators and did not smile. You will process approximately 10,000 arrests daily, he said. This precinct serves a population sector of 22 million. Crime rate is constant. Your function is not investigation. Your function is not rehabilitation. Your function is processing. You will learn efficiency or you will learn failure. The Imperium permits neither contemplation nor mercy. You are the mechanism through which order persists, nothing more. He paused. His augmetic eyes clicked as they scanned our faces. Questions are irrelevant. Doubt is dysfunction. You will understand this within 1 week. He was correct. I understood in 4 days. They assigned me to processing chamber 17, sub-level 4. The chamber stretched 200 meters long, 50 wide, ceiling at 12 meters. Industrial illumination strips cast everything in flat white light. Along both walls stood 160 judgment stations. Each station contained 1 arbitrator, 1 data lector, 1 pick screen displaying the accused information, and 1 shock restraint frame holding the prisoner. I took Station 47. The lectern bore burn marks from low stick ash. The previous arbitrator's name was scratched into the metal, Marcus. Below it, someone had carved a number, 87,449. I did not understand what it counted. My first prisoner arrived at hour 6, morning shift. A man, approximately 40 years old, malnourishment evident. Identification tattoo on his neck, Lower Hive, Labor District 88. 2 enforcement officers brought him in mag shackles and locked him into the restraint frame. The frame's metal arms clamped his wrists and ankles. He did not struggle. I accessed the data lectern. His information displayed instantly. Name, Petran Voss. Age, 42. Occupation, reclamation worker. Arrest charge. Theft of 6 kilograms of processed protein rations from Distribution Center 4721, Gamma. Value, 12 thrones, 40. Arresting officer testimony, suspect discovered with stolen goods. Confession obtained. I looked at him. He looked back. His eyes were brown. He had a scar across his knuckles that looked like burn tissue. Petran Voss, I said. You are accused of theft of Imperial resources. Total value 12 thrones, 40. Do you contest this charge? No, Lord, he said. His voice was hoarse. My children were hungry, I thought. Irrelevant, I said. The word came automatically. Training. Theft of Imperial resources is deviation from ordained function. Sentence, 20 lashes, 7 days labor reclamation. Mark of petty criminal on permanent record. I entered the sentence into the data lectern. The system processed it. Approved. Green indicator light, the restraint frame released him. The enforcement officers took him to the punishment detail. The entire process required 4 minutes, 17 seconds. I felt nothing in particular. The sentence seemed appropriate. He had committed a crime. I had dispensed justice. The system functioned. My second prisoner arrived 3 minutes later. By mid-shift, I had processed 63 cases. Theft, unlicensed assembly, failure to meet work quotas, possession of unregistered materials, deviation from assigned living quarters, improper waste disposal, disrespect to authority, unsanctioned reproduction. The charges varied. The process did not. Each case, review data, confirm identity, state charge, assign sentence, process next case. Sentences fell within established parameters. The data lectern provided guidelines based on offense severity. Minor infractions, lashes, short-term labor detail, fines, mark on record. Moderate infractions, extended labor, augmentation for work detail, permanent monitoring. Severe infractions, servitorization, execution, penal legion conscription. I learned the rhythm. The data appeared. I read it. I judged. The system accepted or rejected my assessment. Rejection was rare if you followed the guidelines. The prisoners said very little. Most had already confessed during arrest processing. Many wept, some begged. I logged their words as irrelevant data. By end shift, I had processed 147 cases. My hands ached from data lectern input. My voice felt raw from speaking sentences aloud. Senior arbitrator Cassius reviewed my performance. Adequate, he said. Tomorrow you will process faster. I returned to my dormitory cell. 2 meters by 3 meters. A cot, a footlocker, a small shrine with the Aquila mounted on the wall. I performed evening prayers as trained. I ate my ration. Nutrition paste, adequate caloric content, no flavor to speak of. I lay on the cot and attempted to sleep. I could not stop seeing the brown eyes of Petran Voss, the way he had said, "My children were hungry," the break in his voice. I told myself his motivation was irrelevant. The law existed independent of circumstance. Need did not justify theft. If exceptions were made, the system would collapse. Order required consistency. I had performed my function correctly. I slept poorly. The second day, I processed 206 cases. I learned to read the data lecterns faster. I learned which questions were necessary and which wasted time. I learned that most prisoners did not contest their charges because contesting achieved nothing. Evidence was evidence. Confession was confession. The system did not account for nuance. A woman, age 23. Charge, unlicensed assembly of 12 or more persons. Sentence, 3 months labor reclamation, mark on record. She tried to explain they were praying together. Group prayer required ecclesiarchy authorization. She had not obtained it. The explanation was irrelevant. A man, age 57. Charge, failure to meet work quota for 16 consecutive days. Medical records showed degenerative bone disease. The disease was documented but not severe enough to warrant labor exemption. Sentence: augmentation for continued service. He would receive spinal reinforcement and pain suppressors. He would meet his quota. He wept as the enforcement officers took him to the augmentation facility. A boy, age 15. Charge: possession of unregistered literature. The literature was a data slate containing fictional stories. Fiction, not approved by imperial censors, was considered potential corruption vector. Sentence: re-education, 6 months, mark on record. He said he had found it. He said he did not know it was illegal. These factors did not alter the sentence. I processed them all. The system accepted my judgments. I was performing adequately. On the 4th day, I met Arbitrator Helm. He worked Station 49, 2 positions to my right, age 32, 11 years of service, face worn in ways that had nothing to do with age. He spoke to me during the 15-minute mid-shift respite. "You are struggling," he said. "Not a question. I am performing within acceptable parameters," I said. "That is not what I asked." He drank recaf from a battered metal cup. The recaf smelled burnt. "You look at them." "I must verify identity visually," I said. "You look at them like they are people." He said this quietly, not unkindly. "This is your first week. You still remember that they are people. By your 4th week, you will have processed approximately 6,000 individuals. By your first year, approximately 73,000. The number becomes difficult to process as individual humans. They become cases, data, functions that deviated from parameters. Is that not—" I paused. "Is that not wrong?" Helm looked at me with something that might have been pity. "Wrong suggests there is an alternative that is right. There is not. 10,000 arrests daily. Tertius Precinct employs 480 arbitrators across 3 shifts. Each arbitrator processes approximately 60 to 70 cases per shift. This is the minimum required to maintain order. If we processed slower, if we held proper trials with evidence review and witness testimony and deliberation, each case would require hours, perhaps days. The backlog would grow. Crime would accumulate faster than processing. The system would collapse. Chaos would follow. So we execute innocence for efficiency," I said. "We execute the accused according to established law," Helm corrected. "Innocence is a philosophical abstraction. The system determines guilt through evidence and confession. If the system is flawed, the flaw is imperial scale, not our function. We are not judges. We are processors. The judgment was rendered the moment the Imperium built hives containing billions and assigned us to maintain order without sufficient resources for actual justice." He finished his recaf. His hands were steady. "You will learn this or you will break," he said. "Most learn, some break. A few request transfer. Transfer is rarely granted. The Imperium needs processors on every world. You will do this here or you will do this elsewhere. Do you believe this is just?" I asked. "I believe this is functional," Helm said. "Justice is a word. Function is survival. I have processed approximately 237,000 cases in 11 years. I sleep adequately. I perform my duty. When I die, another arbitrator will take Station 49 and continue. The system persists. The alternative is collapse." He returned to his station. A new prisoner was being loaded into his restraint frame. Helm reviewed the data, stated the charge, assigned the sentence: 4 minutes, 30 seconds. The prisoner was taken away. Another arrived. I watched him work. His movements were precise, automatic, empty of hesitation. He had become function. I returned to my station. My next prisoner arrived. Man, age 34. Charge: disrespect to supervising authority. He had questioned a work assignment. The supervisor had filed a complaint. Sentence guidelines suggested 10 lashes. Mark on record. I looked at his face. He was terrified. His hands shook in the restraints. "Please," he said. "I did not mean. I was just asking, please, Lord, I have served loyally for—" Sentence is 10 lashes and mark on record, I said. I entered it into the system. Green light. Approved. The restraints released. He was taken away. I felt something close to relief. The sentence was minor. He would survive. He would return to his function. This, I realize now, was the moment I began to accept the system. I had looked for mercy within the mechanism and found it in the gradations of punishment. 10 lashes instead of servitorization felt like compassion. I was learning to measure justice by the scale of what we normally did, not by the scale of what was right. By the end of the first week, I had processed 894 cases. By the end of the first month, 3,712. The numbers accumulated like sediment. Individual faces began to blur. The charges became repetitive. Theft, assembly, deviation, failure, possession, disrespect. The same crimes, different faces, endless rotation. I learned to read the data lectors in 30 seconds. I learned which details mattered for sentencing and which to ignore. I learned that asking prisoners for explanation only prolonged their fear and changed nothing. I became efficient. Senior arbitrator Cassius noted my improved processing time. Adequate progress, he said. This was high praise. I slept better. The faces no longer kept me awake. I told myself this was professional development, not moral erosion. I was learning to function within the system. This was necessary. This was service. I was lying to myself. I understand that now. But lies we tell ourselves are the most convincing. In my third month, they assigned me to judgment category severe. This was progression. Arbitrators began with minor cases: theft, assembly, administrative deviation. As you demonstrated efficiency and emotional stability, they moved you to moderate cases: assault, significant theft, unsanctioned organization. Eventually, if you proved capable, they assigned you to severe cases. Severe cases carried 3 primary sentences: servitorization, execution, or penal legion conscription. Approximately 80% of severe judgments resulted in servitorization or execution. 15% resulted in extended imprisonment or penal legion service. 5% in cases of administrative error or exceptional circumstances resulted in reduced charges. I processed my first execution on a Tuesday. Hour 4, morning shift. The prisoner was a man named Corvus Dane, age 29. Charge: heretical speech, specifically questioning the emperor's divinity in public assembly. Witnesses: 17. Confession: obtained during interrogation. Evidence: recorded testimony. The data was clear. The crime was severe. Imperial law on heresy permitted no ambiguity. To question the emperor's divine nature was to invite chaos corruption. The Imperium's theological foundation could not tolerate public doubt. Execution was not merely punishment, it was cauterization. Corvus Dane stood in the restraint frame and looked at me with absolute calm. He was thin, pale, with a healing bruise across his left cheek from interrogation. His eyes were gray. "Corvus Dane," I said, "you are accused of heretical speech, specifically public questioning of the emperor's divine nature. 17 witnesses confirmed this speech. You have confessed. Do you contest these facts?" "No," he said. His voice was steady. "I said what I said. I believed it then. I believe it now. This was unusual. Most heretics recanted. Fear or torture or genuine reconversion, the cause did not matter. They recanted, and we executed them anyway, but they recanted. Corvus Dane did not." "You understand the sentence for unrepentant heresy is death," I said. "I understand," he said. "I do not ask for mercy. I ask only that my words be recorded accurately. I did not question the emperor's existence. I questioned whether his divinity justifies the suffering of billions. I questioned whether a god who demands this much blood is worthy of worship. These are different questions than the charge suggests." "The distinction is irrelevant," I said. "Questioning the emperor's worthiness is questioning his divinity. The charge stands. Then the charge stands. Corvus Dane said, "Execute me. I will die knowing I spoke truth." I looked at him. He looked back. He was not afraid. He was certain. I entered the sentence into the data lectern. Execution by bolt pistol. Immediate. Remains to be rendered for organic reclamation. The system processed the sentence. Green light. Approved. Sentence is death, I said aloud, as required by protocol. To be carried out immediately. The Emperor's justice is rendered. 2 enforcement officers unlocked the restraint frame. They took Corvus Dane by the arms. He did not resist. They walked him toward the execution chamber. It was adjacent to the processing chamber, separated by a reinforced door. The chamber contained a single execution station. Restraint post, bolt pistol mounted on mechanized arm, organic reclamation chute. I was required to witness. Protocol demanded the sentencing arbitrator confirm execution completion. They locked Corvus Dane to the restraint post. His back was to the bolt pistol. Standard procedure. The arbitrator did not see the prisoner's face during execution. It was considered unnecessary psychological burden. But I was standing at the chamber entrance. I could see his face. He looked toward me as the mechanized arm positioned the bolt pistol against the base of his skull. He smiled. Not mockery, not fear. Something else. Pity, perhaps. Or victory. The bolt pistol fired. The explosive round entered his brainstem and detonated. His head came apart in a burst of bone and tissue and blood. The body collapsed. The reclamation chute opened and servitors dragged the remains away for processing. The entire sequence required 11 seconds. I logged the execution as complete. I returned to my station. My hands were shaking. I did not understand why I had followed protocol exactly. The man was a heretic. Heresy could not be tolerated. The sentence was correct. The execution was necessary. But I could not stop seeing his smile. Arbitrator Helm found me during mid-shift respite. I was standing in the lavatory, staring at my hands. They had finally stopped shaking. "First execution is difficult," Helm said. "I performed correctly," I said. "I did not say you performed incorrectly." He leaned against the wall. "The first one matters because you still believe the system might be wrong. You are looking for evidence that we are monsters. You want to find proof that would justify resistance. Are we not monsters?" I asked. "We are functions," Helm said. "Monsters choose cruelty. We are assigned cruelty and perform it because the alternative is systematic collapse. This distinction is philosophically thin but psychologically necessary." He smiled, I said. "The heretic, before execution." He smiled at me. "They sometimes do," Helm said. "The ones who believe. They think they have won something by dying for their convictions. Perhaps they have. The Imperium will render their bodies to organic paste and feed it to workers who will never know their names. But they died certain. There is power in that." "Does it disturb you?" I asked. "The certainty? It used to," Helm said. "Now I envy it." He left me there. I returned to my station and processed 37 more cases that shift. None were executions. Theft, assembly, deviation. The routine felt like relief. That night I dreamed of Corvus Dane's smile. I woke at hour 3 and could not return to sleep. I performed extra prayers to the Aquila shrine in my cell. I recited the arbitrator's oath. I am the law's instrument. I am the Emperor's justice. I am the bulwark against disorder. I will not falter. I will not question. I will serve until death. I said them anyway. By the end of my 6th month, I had processed 43 executions, 167 servitorizations, and approximately 14,000 total cases. The numbers stopped meaning anything specific. They were simply accumulation, data in the archive. I had learned to read a case file in 20 seconds, assign appropriate sentence in 15, process the prisoner in under 4 minutes total. I was exceeding performance standards. Senior Arbitrator Cassius recommended me for advancement. "You have adapted well," he said. "You demonstrate appropriate detachment and efficiency. You will be assigned to high-value processing next month. High-value processing handled cases involving gang leaders, corrupt officials, organized heresy, significant smuggling operations, crimes that required slightly more deliberation because the ramifications extended beyond individual punishment. These cases might take 10 minutes instead of 4. This was considered complex work. I accepted the assignment. I told myself it was professional achievement. I was 20 years old and had personally condemned 410 people to death. I no longer remembered most of their faces. But I remembered Corvus Dane's smile. And I remembered Petran Voss saying, "My children were hungry." These two memories persisted when thousands of others blurred into statistical aggregate. I did not understand why these two specifically, perhaps because Petran Voss was first and Corvus Dane was certainty. Between them, the spectrum of everyone I had processed. Need and conviction, survival and principle. The system destroyed both with equal efficiency. I archived these thoughts as dysfunction and continued processing. Then in my 8th month of service, I met Arbitrator Novitiate Lokan, and everything I had learned to suppress became impossible to maintain. He arrived with a new intake of 30 arbitrators fresh from Schola training, age 18 like I had been. Assigned to Station 51, 3 positions to my right, 1 position past helm. I noticed him because he looked like I must have looked 8 months prior. Uncertain, rigid with training doctrine, eyes that still saw individuals instead of case files. He processed slowly, 6 minutes per case, sometimes 7. Senior Arbitrator Cassius noted this during shift review. "Arbitrator Novitiate Lokan, your efficiency is below standard. You will improve or you will be reassigned to labor detail." Lokan nodded. "Yes, Senior Arbitrator, I will improve." But he did not improve. He continued processing at 6 minutes per case. I observed him during shifts. He read every line of the case files. He asked prisoners questions that did not affect sentencing. He hesitated before entering judgments into the data lectern. He was doing what I had done initially, looking for justice within the system. During mid-shift respite in my 2nd week observing him, I approached his station. "You are processing inefficiently," I said. He looked up. His eyes were green. He had a small scar above his right eyebrow. "I am being thorough. Thoroughness is irrelevant. The data lecterns provide all necessary information. Additional investigation does not alter available sentences. Sometimes the data is incomplete," Lokan said. "Sometimes there are circumstances that—" "Circumstances do not alter law," I said. This was pure doctrine. I sounded like my instructors. "You will process faster, or you will be removed." "I will try," Lokan said. He did try. Over the following weeks, his processing time decreased to 5 minutes, then 4.5. But he never reached the 3.5-minute standard. And I observed that he was taking shortcuts that reduced time without reducing his actual engagement. He was reading the files faster, asking fewer questions. But still, I could see it in the way his eyes moved. He was still processing these people as individuals. This was going to break him. I recognized this because it had nearly broken me. I had survived by learning detachment. Lokan had not learned this yet. He was going to fail, and failure meant reassignment to punishment detail or labor corps, or, if his psychological evaluation was sufficiently poor, servitorization. I did not want him to be servitorized. This realization surprised me. I had not cared about the fate of anyone in particular for months. Individual suffering had become background data. But something about Lokan's determination to find justice in a system designed to prevent it, something about watching him struggle against the same thing I had struggled against, made him matter. This was dangerous. Attachment was dysfunction. Caring about specific individuals interfered with processing efficiency. I should have reported this thought to my superior and requested psychological evaluation. I did not report it. Instead, during a rest period, I invited Lokan to share recaf in the arbitrator break chamber. This was unusual but not forbidden. Arbitrators did not typically socialize, but neither was it prohibited. He accepted. We sat in the break chamber, a gray room with tables and a recaf dispenser that produced liquid barely distinguishable from machine lubricant. We drank it anyway. "You are struggling," I said. "I am improving," Loken said. "My processing time has decreased by—" "You are still looking at them as people," I interrupted. "This will destroy you." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Were you not supposed to report that observation?" "Probably," I said. "Why did you not?" I did not have an answer that made sense. "Because I remember what it was like," I said finally, "when they were still people. Before they became case files. They are still people," Loken said. "The system treats them as data, but they remain people. That distinction is what will break you." "Perhaps," Loken said. "But if I stop seeing them as people, what does that make me?" "Functional," I said. "Which is sufficient. Is it?" He looked at me. His eyes were very green. Very direct. "You have been here 8 months. You process 3 times faster than I do. You are efficient. Are you satisfied with what you have become?" No one had asked me this. I had not asked myself this. "Satisfaction is irrelevant," I said. The doctrine came automatically. I perform my function. The system continues. "The system continues," Loken repeated. "Yes, it does. We process 10,000 people daily, 80% to death or servitorization. The system continues. But for whom? For what purpose? We maintain order so that hive cities can function, so that factories can operate, so that the Imperium can wage eternal war. We sacrifice millions for stability. But stability in service of what? More sacrifice? "You are approaching heretical philosophy," I said quietly. "I am asking questions," Loken said. "Questions are not heresy. Doubt is not corruption. If the Imperium cannot withstand basic philosophical inquiry, perhaps it should not persist." I should have reported him immediately. What he had just said was textbook grounds for investigation. Questioning the Imperium's foundational purpose was ideological deviation, one step from outright heresy. I did not report him. "You cannot say these things," I said instead. "If anyone else hears you, you will be processed. I will be required to judge you. The sentence for ideological deviation is servitorization or execution. I do not want to execute you." "I do not know," I said. This was true. "Do you agree with what I said?" he asked. "Agreement is irrelevant," I said. "Even if every arbitrator in this fortress agreed, we would continue processing because the alternative is immediate collapse. We are not the system. We are components of the system. Components do not choose." "Components do not choose," Loken said slowly. "But we are not yet components. We are still men. Men choose. Even if the choice is between evils, it remains choice. We can refuse to process, we would be executed and replaced. We can process slowly, seeking perfect justice. The backlog would grow until the system collapsed. We can process efficiently, without regard for individual circumstances. This is what we do. This is the only functional option. Your questions do not reveal alternatives. They only make the work harder to bear. Perhaps the work should be hard to bear, Loken said. Perhaps if it became easy, we would be lost entirely. I had no response to this. We sat in silence, drinking terrible recaf. Around us, other arbitrators came and went. No one spoke. This was normal. Arbitrators did not bond. We worked adjacent to each other, but not together. The work was isolating by design. Collective doubt was more dangerous than individual questioning. Loken and I should not have been having this conversation. It violated the implicit rule: do not acknowledge what we do, process, and continue. Maintain the function. Do not examine the mechanism. But we had acknowledged it, and now I could not return to the comfortable detachment I had built over 8 months. Loken had reminded me that the prisoners were people. And worse, he had reminded me that I was still a person too, capable of choice, responsible for what I chose. I hated him for this. and I needed him for this. Over the following weeks, Lokan and I began taking rest periods together regularly. We did not discuss our cases in detail, that was forbidden. Case files were confidential, but we discussed the system, the philosophy, the mathematics of order. He told me about his family. His father had been an enforcer, killed during a gang conflict when Lokan was 7. His mother had died 2 years later of blood rot from untreated injury. He had been sent to the Schola as an orphan, like most of us. He had believed the training, the doctrine, the promise that he would serve justice. "I still want to serve justice," he said during one conversation. "But this is not justice. This is industrial processing of human beings. We are not judges, we are executioners with administrative duties." I had stopped arguing with him. His words were simply accurate. "Do you ever think about refusing?" he asked. "No," I said. Then, more honestly, "Yes, often. But refusal accomplishes nothing except my own death and someone else performing my function. Would that not still be better? To refuse complicity even if it changes nothing? Better for whom?" I asked. "For me, perhaps. A clean conscience purchased with my life, but the prisoners I would have processed are processed by my replacement. My refusal saves no one. It simply makes me feel noble as I die." "Nobility might be sufficient reason," Lokan said. "Nobility is a luxury," I said. "We are not afforded luxury." These conversations continued for 2 months. I came to anticipate our rest periods. In a day of processing 70 cases, 70 lives reduced to 4-minute administrative actions, the 15 minutes with Lokan felt like the only time I was something other than function. He made me remember I was still Tomas, somewhere beneath Arbitrator Novitiate 4427. Tertius, Hive Secundus. This was dangerous. This was necessary. I think he felt the same. He began processing slightly faster, not because he cared less, but because he needed the efficiency to avoid reassignment. He wanted to survive, not for the system, for our conversations, for the shared acknowledgement that what we did was monstrous but inescapable. We became each other's evidence that we had not been completely consumed. Then, in my 11th month of service, Senior Arbitrator Cassius assigned Lokan to Judgment Category Severe. This was earlier than standard progression. Lokan had only been processing for 3 months. Usually, arbitrators required 6 months minimum before handling executions and servitorizations. But the precinct was understaffed. Several arbitrators had been transferred to warzone deployments. The remaining staff needed to absorb the workload. Lokan was efficient enough now. He could handle severe cases. I knew this would break him. His first execution was scheduled for a morning shift, hour 5. The prisoner was a woman named Sarah Vex, age 34. Charge: organized heresy, specifically leading an unsanctioned prayer group that taught non-ecclesiarchy interpretations of imperial doctrine. Evidence: testimony from 12 former group members. Confession: obtained after interrogation. The charge was clear. Organized heresy was execution grade. The sentence was predetermined. I watched from my station as Lokan reviewed the case file. His hands were steady, but I saw the way his jaw tightened, the way he read the file 3 times instead of once. He looked up at Sarah Vex in the restraint frame. She was small, thin, with gray beginning to thread through black hair. She had scars on her wrists from the mag shackles. She looked terrified. "Sarah Vex," Lokan said. His voice was controlled. "You are accused of organized heresy, leading unsanctioned prayer group, teaching non-approved doctrine. 12 witnesses confirm. You have confessed. Do you contest these facts?" "No, Lord," she said. Her voice shook. "I only wanted to help them understand. The Emperor's message should include compassion, not only." "The content of your teaching is irrelevant," Lokan said. The words were protocol, but they came out strained. "Unsanctioned doctrinal interpretation is heresy regardless of intent. You understand the sentence is death." She began to cry. "Please, please, I have children, 2 sons, ages 6 and 8. They have no other family. Please, Lord, mercy. The Emperor teaches mercy. Loken stopped. His hands were on the data lectern, ready to enter the sentence. He stopped. This was dangerous. The processing had to continue. Stopping meant hesitation. Hesitation meant doubt. Doubt was infection. The Emperor's mercy is irrelevant to imperial law, Loken said. But his hands had not moved. Your children will be taken into scholar care if they are suitable. If not, they will be assigned to labor detail appropriate to their age. They are 6 and 8, Seravec said. They will die in labor assignments. Please, please, I will accept any punishment, servitorization, anything. Let me live to see them one more time, please. Loken looked at her. I could see his face from my angle. He was breaking. Loken, I said quietly, process the case. He did not respond. Arbitrator Novitiate Lokan. Senior Arbitrator Cassius's voice cut through the chamber from the oversight platform. You will complete the sentencing immediately. He entered the sentence. Execution by bolt pistol immediate. Remains to organic reclamation. The system processed it. Green light, approved. Sentence is death, Loken said. His voice was barely audible. To be carried out immediately. The Emperor's justice is rendered. The enforcement officers took Seravec to the execution chamber. She was sobbing. She was saying her children's names. Matthias, Petir, Matthias, Petir. He walked to the chamber entrance, like a man approaching his own death. I abandoned my station and followed. This was against protocol. I did not care. We stood at the execution chamber entrance. Seravec was locked to the restraint post. She was still crying, still saying her sons' names. The mechanized bolt pistol positioned itself. She turned her head, tried to look back, maybe trying to see her children one last time in her mind. The bolt pistol fired. Her head came apart. The body collapsed. The reclamation chute opened. The servitors dragged her away. Loken stood completely still. His face was empty of expression. This was worse than grief. This was the moment the system killed something inside him. Loken, I said. He turned and walked away, not back to his station, toward the exit. Arbitrator Novitiate Loken. Cassius's voice boomed. Return to your station. Loken kept walking. I followed him. I should not have. I was abandoning my station during active shift. This was punishable offense. I followed him anyway. He walked through corridors, past other chambers, past enforcement officers who watched but did not stop him. He walked until he reached the fortress's outer observation deck, a platform that overlooked the hive city. Gray sky, gray buildings, gray streets stretching to the horizon. 140 million people. Loken stood at the railing and looked out at the city. I stood beside him. I killed her, he said. You processed a lawful sentence, I said. I killed her for teaching that the Emperor valued compassion. I killed her and orphaned her children. I followed procedure. I functioned correctly. I am a component of a system that murders people for wanting mercy. Yes, I said. How do you bear this? He asked. How do you continue? I did not have an answer that would help. I learned to stop seeing them. I process data instead of people. This makes it bearable. That is what I am supposed to do, Loken said. Learn detachment, become function. But if I do that, I will lose the part of me that knows this is wrong. And if I do not do that, I will break. There is no option that preserves both sanity and humanity. No, I agreed. There is not. We continue, I said, because stopping accomplishes nothing except our own destruction. We continue and carry the knowledge of what we are. We do not allow ourselves the comfort of forgetting. We remain aware that we are complicit. This is the only integrity available to us. That is not integrity, Loken said. That is just continuing to commit atrocities while feeling bad about it. That is exactly what it is. He looked at me. His eyes were red. How long have you been doing this? 11 months, I said. How many people have you condemned to death? 573, I said. The number was precise. I had kept count. This was probably dysfunction, but I could not stop. Another 941 to servitorization, approximately 16,000 total processed. Do you remember them? No, I said. Most have blurred together. I remember perhaps 20 individually. The rest are statistical aggregate. I will remember Sarah Vex, Loken said. I will remember that she said her children's names, Matthias and Petir. I will remember that she asked for mercy, and I gave her death. You will remember for a while, I said. Then you will process your next execution, then your next. Eventually, the weight of continued cases will compress individual memories into general data. You will remember that you have killed many people. You will not remember most of their names. This is how you survive. I do not want to survive that way, Loken said. The alternative is death or madness, I said. Choose survival, please. He looked at me for a long time. Why do you care if I survive? I did not have words for this. The system had trained me to excise emotional attachment. Caring about anyone specifically was classified as potential psychological compromise, but Loken had become something the system did not account for. Evidence that I had not been completely mechanized. His questions reminded me I was still capable of doubt. His struggle was proof I was still capable of recognizing suffering. I needed him to survive, because if he broke, I would lose the last mirror showing me I was still partially human. Because you are the only person in this fortress who still asks if we should continue, I said finally. Everyone else has accepted the system or broken against it. You are still questioning. If you stop questioning, if you accept or break, then no one will be asking any more. The system will have consumed all resistance. I do not want that to be true. One person questioning changes nothing, Loken said. I know, I said, but it matters anyway. I cannot explain why. It just does. We stood at the railing, looking out at the hive city. Somewhere in that gray expanse were two boys named Matthias and Petir, who no longer had a mother. I will continue, Loken said finally. I will process cases. I will assign sentences. I will condemn people to death. But I will not stop questioning. I will not allow myself to forget what this is. If that breaks me eventually, so be it. But I will not willingly become just function. That is sufficient, I said. We returned to our stations. Senior Arbitrator Cassius reprimanded us both for abandoning posts during shift. We accepted the reprimand. We returned to processing. Loken completed his shift. He processed 38 additional cases after Sarah Vex. He did not break that day. But something had changed. He had crossed into the space where you understand what you are and choose to continue anyway. This was not acceptance. This was conscious complicity. This was worse than acceptance because it meant you could not claim ignorance or inevitability. You knew, and you continued. We both knew now. Over the following months, Loken and I continued our rest period conversations. They became essential. We needed to speak the truth to someone. We needed to acknowledge what we were doing. If we did not speak it, if we simply processed in silence, we would either accept the system or break against it. Speaking it, naming the horror, acknowledging the complicity, allowed us to exist in the terrible middle ground between acceptance and breakdown. We were choosing to remain conscious of our own monstrosity. This was the only form of resistance available to us. I do not know if this was noble or pathetic, probably both. Loken processed his 10th execution in his 5th month, his 50th in his 9th month. He learned to function efficiently. His processing time decreased to standard. He no longer hesitated before entering death sentences. But I observed that he kept a small notebook. A violation of regulations, personal records of case files were forbidden, and sometimes during rest periods he would write in it. "What are you recording?" I asked once. "Names," he said. "The ones I execute. I write their names and the date and their last words if they spoke any. Someone should remember. That is dangerous, I said. If Cassius finds that, you will be investigated for psychological instability. I know, Loken said. I keep it anyway. This was irrational. The notebook served no purpose. The executed were gone. Recording their names changed nothing. But I understood why he kept it. It was evidence that they had been people. It was refusal to allow the system to reduce them to processed data. It was futile and necessary. I began keeping my own count. Not names, I could not manage that. There were too many, but numbers, executions, servitorizations, total cases. I carved the current totals into the underside of my bunk each week. Small marks, easily overlooked. Evidence of accumulation. We were both creating illegal records of our complicity. This was probably classified as obsessive behavior, indicating psychological damage. We continued anyway. By my 18th month of service, I had processed 47,312 cases, 1,891 executions, 3,407 servitorizations. These numbers were my testimony. I could not stop the system. I could not save anyone. But I could count. I could maintain the archive of what was done. This felt like the only integrity available, witnessing completely, refusing the comfort of forgetting. Arbitrator Helm noticed the change in both Loken and me. During a rest period, he approached us. "You are forming attachment," he said. Not a question. "Yes," I said. There was no point denying it. "This is dangerous," Helm said. "Attachment creates emotional liability. If one of you is killed or transferred or broken, the other will be compromised." "We are already compromised," Loken said. "We are components of an atrocity machine. Psychological compromise is not our primary problem." Then something like respect. "You have progressed faster than I expected. It took me 4 years to articulate that clearly." "You believe the same?" I asked. "I have believed the same for 9 years," Helm said. "Since my 3rd year of service, I processed a man for theft of food. His family was starving. He stole 6 kilograms of nutri-paste. I sentenced him to servitorization. I watched them take him to augmentation. I realized then that I was participating in a system that valued property over human life, that destroyed people for the crime of needing to survive. I have carried that knowledge for 9 years. I continue processing because stopping accomplishes nothing. I am complicit. I am aware. I cannot change the system. I can only witness what it does and continue existing." "How do you bear it?" Loken asked. "Poorly." Helm said, "I sleep 4 hours per night. I have chronic recaf addiction. I no longer remember what purpose feels like, but I function. I process approximately 70 cases per shift. I have condemned approximately 243,000 people across 11 years, most to minor punishment, thousands to death. I am a very efficient monster." He said this without emotion. Statement of fact. "Why are you telling us this?" I asked. "Because you will need someone who has survived longer," Helm said. "Someone who can confirm that it is possible to carry this knowledge for years without breaking. You are both at the critical point. The next 6 months will determine if you adapt or fragment. I am evidence that adaptation is possible. This is not comforting, but it is true." "What does adaptation look like?" Loken asked. "This," Helm said. Gesturing to himself, "You become a witness who participates. You lose hope that the system will improve. You lose hope that your participation might somehow lead to justice. You retain only the knowledge of what you are and the choice to continue anyway. You hollow out everything except function and awareness. This is what survival requires." "That is not survival," I said. "That is just slower death. But it is the only option. Fast death by refusing to process and being executed. Slow death by continuing to process while remaining aware. Or complete death by accepting the system and losing whatever part of you still knows this is wrong." I chose slow death. You will choose the same, or you will not survive. He left us there. Loken looked at me. Do you want to become that? No, I said. But I do not want the alternatives either. We are trapped, Loken said. Completely trapped. Every option destroys something essential. Yes, I said. We sat in silence. Around us, other arbitrators processed their rest period routines. Eating rations, performing weapon maintenance, staring at nothing. We were surrounded by people who had already made the choice Helm described. They had hollowed out. They functioned. They did not question. We were questioning. This made us different. This made us, perhaps, still partially human. I will choose slow death, Loken said finally. I will continue processing. I will remain aware. I will keep my notebook. If this eventually breaks me, at least I will break knowing what I was, not what the system wanted me to become. I will do the same, I said. We made this choice together. We committed to conscious complicity. We accepted that we would participate in atrocity while acknowledging its nature. This was not heroic. This was not noble. This was simply the least destructive option available. We returned to our stations. We continued processing. The months accumulated like scar tissue. I processed 70 cases per shift. Loken processed 65. We met during rest periods and spoke the truth to each other. We counted our dead. We maintained our illegal records. We survived. I thought this equilibrium might continue indefinitely. That Loken and I would process for years, carrying our awareness like a chronic wound that never quite killed us. I was wrong. In my 23rd month of service, during hour 6 of a morning shift, they brought in a prisoner designated for high-value processing. High-value processing was reserved for cases with political ramifications. Gang leaders whose execution might destabilize territorial balance. Officials whose corruption trials required careful timing. Heretics whose following was large enough to require public execution for deterrent effect. The prisoner was a man named Castellan Vorth, age 52, senior administrative official, logistics coordination for 3 manufacturing sectors. Charge, systematic embezzlement, total value approximately 40,000 thrones. Evidence, comprehensive audit records. Confession, not obtained. The man denied all charges. This was unusual. Most high-value prisoners confessed during interrogation. Castellan Vorth had endured significant interrogation, evident from the damage to his hands and face, but had not confessed. He stood in the restraint frame at my station. High-value processing rotated through specific arbitrators. I was assigned this shift and looked at me with absolute contempt. Castellan Vorth, I said. You are accused of systematic embezzlement. Total value 40,000 thrones. Evidence includes comprehensive audit trail documenting fund diversion. You have not confessed. Do you contest this charge? I contest the legitimacy of this entire proceeding, Vorth said. His voice was clear despite the interrogation damage. The audit was fabricated by my political rivals to remove me from position. The evidence is manufactured. I am guilty of no crime except being inconvenient to people with power. The evidence has been verified by 3 independent audit servitors, I said. Servitor analysis is considered beyond corruption. Servitors process the data they are given, Vorth said. If the input data is falsified, the servitor will verify false conclusions. The system is not incorruptible. It is simply mechanical. You are judging me based on mechanical analysis of potentially false data. This is not justice. This is administrative murder. I looked at the case file again. The evidence appeared comprehensive. 40,000 thrones diverted over 6 years through hundreds of small transactions. The pattern was clear. The data was verified, but Vorth was correct about one thing. If the initial data was falsified, servitor analysis would confirm the false pattern. The system assumed input integrity. It did not question the source. Do you have evidence supporting your claim of fabrication? I asked. I have testimony from colleagues who will confirm my innocence, Vorth said. I have requested they be called as witnesses. My request has been denied. Witness testimony is not standard procedure for administrative crimes with documentary evidence, I said. The evidence is considered sufficient, Vorth said. You are executing me based on documents I claim are false, without allowing me to present counter-evidence, without investigation beyond mechanical verification. This is not law. This is efficiency pretending to be justice. He was describing the system exactly. I looked at the sentencing guidelines. Embezzlement of 40,000 thrones. Execution or penal legion conscription. At arbitrator discretion depending on value to the Imperium versus severity of betrayal. Vorth was a senior logistics coordinator. His administrative knowledge had value. Penal legion conscription was appropriate. But if his claim of fabricated evidence was true, then no sentence was appropriate. He was innocent. The system provided no mechanism to investigate his claim. High-value processing cases were assigned based on charge severity and political sensitivity. The investigation had already been completed by enforcement authorities. My role was to evaluate the provided evidence and assign appropriate sentence. The evidence appeared valid. I should assign the sentence and continue. But Vorth had articulated the system's fundamental flaw. We assumed input integrity. We trusted that arrests were legitimate, evidence was accurate, confessions were truthful. We processed data without questioning the data's origin. If enforcement authorities were corrupt, if evidence could be fabricated, if political rivals could weaponize the system, then we were not enforcing law. We were enforcing power. I had known this abstractly. Loken and I had discussed it, but I had never been forced to make a decision while uncertain of the evidence's validity. I will request additional investigation, I said. Arbitrator, additional investigation is not protocol for documentary evidence, the enforcement officer supervising the case said. The evidence is verified. Process the case. The prisoner claims fabrication, I said. His claim is specific and credible. Investigation is warranted. Investigation has been completed, the officer said. Your function is sentencing, not investigation. Process the case, or I will report your refusal to Senior Arbitrator Cassius. I looked at Vorth. He looked back. His eyes were gray. He had a scar across his chin from old injury. He was terrified but controlled. He believed he was innocent. I had no way to determine if he was telling the truth. If I requested investigation and he was guilty, I was wasting resources on a criminal who was manipulating the system with false claims. If I processed him without investigation and he was innocent, I was executing a man for a crime he did not commit to satisfy someone else's political agenda. The system provided no mechanism to resolve this uncertainty. It required me to choose. I chose. Sentence is penal legion conscription, I said. Indefinite term. The prisoner's administrative expertise will serve the Imperium in combat logistics. It removed Vorth from his position, satisfying whoever had fabricated the charges, if the charges were indeed fabricated, while preserving his life pending potential future review. Vorth stared at me. You are sending me to die in a war zone, instead of executing me here. This is your compromise? This is the maximum leniency available within sentencing parameters, I said. Penal legion service allows possibility of survival and future review. Execution does not. Penal legions die. You have chosen a slower execution to ease your own conscience. He was correct, but I entered the sentence anyway. The system processed it. Green light. Approved. The enforcement officers took Vorth away. He did not resist. He looked back at me once before exiting. His expression was not gratitude or anger. It was pity. I had tried to find mercy within the system and achieved only a variation of cruelty. Senior Arbitrator Cassius called me to his office after shift. Your sentencing of Castellan Vorth was questioned by enforcement authority, Cassius said. They requested execution. You assigned penal legion conscription. Explain your reasoning. The prisoner claimed evidence fabrication, I said. His claim was credible enough to warrant preserving his life pending potential review. There will be no review, Cassius said. Penal Legion conscripts do not receive case review. You assigned a sentence that appears lenient while accomplishing the same outcome as execution. This is cowardice disguised as mercy. It was the least destructive option available, I said. The least destructive option was execution, Cassius said. Clean, final, efficient. You chose moral complexity over function. This is acceptable once. If it becomes pattern, you will be reassigned to standard processing or removed from Arbites service. Dismissed, Cassius said. I returned to my cell. I carved a new mark under my bunk. 1 execution commuted to Penal Legion. Evidence of the one time I had attempted to preserve life within the system. It felt like failure. That night I dreamed of Castellan Vorth dying in a trench somewhere, shot by enemies he did not understand, conscripted into a war he had no stake in, because I had tried to be merciful. I woke and could not return to sleep. During the next rest period, I told Loken what had happened. You tried to save him, Loken said. I sent him to a slower death, I said. I chose the option that let me feel better about myself while accomplishing the same outcome. No, Loken said. You chose the option that preserved possibility. Penal Legion service is not certain death. Some survive, some even earn redemption and return to normal service. Execution is absolute. You gave him a chance. A chance to die in a war zone instead of a fortress, I said. Still a chance, Loken said. It was not much, but it was more than nothing. That is the only thing we can do. Give people slightly more than nothing when the system demands we give them nothing at all. Is that sufficient? I asked. No, Loken said, but it is what we have. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that small acts of limited mercy mattered. But I had seen the system too long. I knew that Castellan Vorth would die, and my choice had only determined the manner and timing. I had not saved him. I had simply redistributed his death to a different administrative category. This was all the power I possessed, not to prevent atrocity, but to select which variety of atrocity to inflict. 2 weeks later, they brought in a prisoner for Loken's station. I was processing my own cases, but I observed peripherally. The prisoner was young, approximately 16 years old. Charge: possession and distribution of prohibited literature, specifically philosophical texts questioning the Imperium's social structure. Evidence: 12 banned data slates found in his possession. Confession obtained. The boy stood in the restraint frame and looked terrified. He had a bruise across his face from arrest or interrogation. His hands were shaking. Loken reviewed the case file. The charge was clear. Distribution of prohibited literature was severe category ideological deviation. Standard sentence: re-education or servitorization, depending on age and assessed corruption depth. The boy was 16, young enough that re-education might be deemed effective, but distribution, not just possession, suggested commitment to the ideology. This weighted toward servitorization. I watched Loken's face. He was struggling with the same calculation I had struggled with regarding Vorth. The system provided guidelines, not absolutes. There was discretion. And discretion meant choice. And choice meant responsibility. Did you read the prohibited texts? Loken asked the boy. Yes, Lord, the boy said. His voice was shaking. Did you believe what they said? I thought they made sense, Lord. They talked about justice, about people mattering, about systems that value human life. I did not think that was wrong. It is wrong when it contradicts imperial doctrine, Loken said. The Imperium structure exists for humanity's survival. Alternative philosophies threaten that structure. Do you understand this? I understand that is what I am supposed to believe, Lord, the boy said. But I do not understand how questioning makes me dangerous. I was not trying to hurt anyone. I just wanted people to think. Thinking without guidance leads to corruption, Loken said. This was pure doctrine. Chaos begins with doubt. You were distributing doubt. This cannot be tolerated. Then kill me for it, the boy said. Suddenly he was not terrified. He was angry, If thinking is a crime worthy of death, then kill me. But do not pretend you are protecting humanity. You are protecting a system that murders children for reading books." Loken stopped. The chamber was processing 60 other cases simultaneously. Other arbitrators continued their work. The sound of sentences being pronounced, restraint frames opening and closing, prisoners being moved. Constant mechanical rhythm. Loken stood frozen at his lectern. "Arbitrator Novitiate Loken," the supervising enforcement officer said. "Process the case." Loken looked at the boy. The boy looked back. I knew what Loken was thinking. I could see it in his face. The boy was right. The boy was articulating the truth we had both recognized. The system did murder people for thinking. The boy was going to be servitorized or killed for the crime of reading philosophy, and Loken was going to be the one to do it. "Sentence is re-education," Loken said finally. 12 months intensive. Mark on permanent record. The prisoner is young enough that ideological correction remains possible. The system processed the sentence. Green light. Approved. The boy was taken away. He looked confused. He had expected death or servitorization. He had received the least destructive option. Loken sat down at his station. His hands were shaking. I abandoned my station, again violating protocol, and approached him. "You saved him," I said quietly. "I sent him to re-education," Loken said. "They will break him. They will strip away everything he thought and replace it with doctrine. He will emerge believing that questioning is evil. He will become a loyal servant of the system. I have not saved him. I have killed who he was and let his body continue functioning as an obedient component." "That is still better than servitorization," I said. "Is it?" Loken asked. "At least servitorization is honest. Brain removal, augmentation, reduction to function. Re-education pretends to preserve the person while destroying everything that made them individual. It is slower servitorization that leaves the skull intact." "He will live," I said. "He will exist," Loken said. "Life is not the same as existence." He returned to processing. He completed his shift. He assigned 43 more sentences that day. But something had changed. He had tried to show mercy and recognized that mercy within the system was just another form of violence. We were learning that there were no good choices, only degrees of harm, only variations of complicity. That night, Loken showed me his notebook. It was nearly full. Hundreds of names, dates, last words. His handwriting was small, cramped, covering every available space. "I am running out of pages," he said. "Will you request another notebook?" I asked. "No," he said. "When this one is full, I will stop recording. I cannot maintain this archive forever. It serves no purpose except my own psychological need to memorize atrocity. Eventually, I will have to choose between remembering everything and being able to continue. I will choose to continue. This is the final compromise. Eventually, we forget, or we break, or we die. Those are the only outcomes." "How long do you think you can continue?" I asked. "I do not know," Loken said. "Months, perhaps years. Eventually, the accumulation will become unbearable. I will either accept the system or fragment. I will become like Helm, hollowed function that persists without hope, or I will break and be removed. There is no third option. We could refuse," I said. "We could stop processing. We could force them to execute us." "And accomplish what?" Loken asked. "Our replacements would process the same cases. We would die nobly and change nothing. At least we would not be complicit anymore." "We are already complicit," Loken said. "We have been complicit since our first sentence. Refusing now does not erase what we have already done. It only ends our ability to choose marginally less destructive options within the system. The boy I sentenced today, if I had refused to process him, someone else would have assigned servitorization. I gave him re-education instead. That is not mercy, but it is slightly less harm. If I die to preserve my own moral purity, I lose even that small capability. So we continue," I said. We process. We inflict harm. We count our dead. We exist in the space between acceptance and refusal. This is all we can do. Yes, Loken said. We sat in silence. His notebook lay open between us. Hundreds of names of people we had killed or destroyed. Evidence that they had existed. Evidence that we had ended them. Do you think anyone will ever read this? I asked, gesturing to the notebook. No, Loken said. When I die or break, someone will dispose of my possessions. The notebook will be burned as unauthorized documentation. No one will know these names. The archive exists only while I exist. When I stop, it stops. This is testimony that no one will hear. Then why maintain it? Because they deserve to be remembered, even if only by the person who killed them, Loken said. I cannot save them. I cannot even honor them properly. But I can know their names. I can carry the weight of what I did. This is the only integrity I have left, refusing to forget. I understood. I had been doing the same thing with my counts carved under my bunk. We were both maintaining illegal archives of our own monstrosity. We were both witnesses to ourselves. This changed nothing about the system, but it changed something about us. We remained aware. We refused the comfort of institutional forgetting. Perhaps this was cowardice, continuing to participate while maintaining just enough awareness to feel bad about it. Perhaps this was the only form of resistance available when actual resistance was impossible. I do not know. I know only that we continued. Months passed. I processed 80,000 cases. Loken processed 65,000. We met during rest periods. We spoke truth to each other. We counted our dead. Arbitrator Heln was reassigned to another precinct. Before he left, he found us during a rest period. You are both still questioning, he said. This is remarkable. Most either accept or break by the third year. You have maintained the tension. It is not sustainable, Loken said. No, Helm agreed. But you have sustained it longer than most. This is worth something. What is it worth? I asked. I do not know, Helm said. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps it matters that someone continued asking if this was right, even when they knew the answer was no. Perhaps consciousness of complicity is marginally better than unconscious participation. Or perhaps it is just extended suffering without purpose. I have never determined which. Will you continue questioning? Loken asked. I will continue existing, Helm said. Questioning has become background process. It runs constantly without affecting function. I am a witness who participates. This is what I am now. This is what you will become, if you survive long enough. He left. We did not see him again. I reached my third year of service. I had processed 147,000 cases, 4,239 executions, 7,815 servitorizations. I could no longer remember individual faces. The cases had compressed into patterns: theft, assembly, deviation, heresy. The same crimes, infinite variations, continuous processing. But I still remembered Petran Voss saying, "My children were hungry." I still remembered Corvus Dane's smile. I still remembered Sarah Vex saying Matthias and Petir. The way he still hesitated for half a second before entering death sentences, even after 3 years. He mattered. In a system designed to erase individual significance, he mattered to me specifically. This was dangerous. This was necessary. Then, in my 38th month of service, during hour 7 of an evening shift, they brought in a prisoner for high-value processing. The prisoner was Arbitrator Novitiate Loken. Charge: psychological instability, evidenced by unauthorized documentation of case files, prohibited personal record keeping, potential ideological deviation, evidence, his notebook, discovered during routine cell inspection. He stood in the restraint frame at Station 47, my station. They had assigned his case to me specifically. Senior Arbitrator Cassius was observing from the oversight platform. I looked at the case file. The evidence was clear. The notebook contained names, dates, details of executions. This was explicitly forbidden. Arbitrators were not permitted to maintain personal records of cases. Such records indicated psychological overinvestment in individual cases, which indicated potential instability. The charge was accurate. The evidence was valid. Standard sentence for arbitrator: psychological instability, evaluation, potential servitorization, or execution depending on severity assessment. I looked at Loken. He looked back at me. His face was calm. He had known this would happen eventually. He had chosen to keep the notebook anyway. "Arbitrator Novitiate Loken," I said. My voice was steady. "You are accused of maintaining unauthorized documentation of case files. Evidence is your personal notebook containing details of approximately 800 processed cases. Do you contest this charge?" "No," Loken said. "The notebook is mine. I maintained it knowingly. I do not contest the facts." "Why did you maintain this documentation?" "Because they deserve to be remembered," Loken said. "I killed them or destroyed them. I followed proper procedure. I functioned correctly, but they were people. They had names. Someone should remember that they existed. This reasoning indicates psychological overinvestment," I said. "Arbitrators must maintain professional detachment. Individual cases cannot be prioritized over systematic function." "I understand that is the standard," Loken said. "I could not maintain that standard. I tried. For 3 years I processed cases while remembering they were people. This created tension, but the alternative was accepting the system as just. I could not do that. I would rather be broken than accept." He was testifying to his own guilt. He was making no defense. "Do you recognize that you are psychologically compromised?" I asked. "I recognize that I have not been psychologically destroyed," Loken said. "If that is compromise, yes. I have remained partially human despite the system's requirement that I become function. This is the charge. I am guilty." Senior Arbitrator Cassius was watching. Other arbitrators were processing their own cases, but listening peripherally. This was a test. The system was determining if I had been compromised by association with Loken. I looked at the sentencing guidelines. Psychological instability in Arbites personnel. Servitorization, execution, or reduced to enforcement labor depending on severity and salvageability assessment. Loken had processed 75,000 cases across 3 years. He had demonstrated adequate efficiency despite his psychological maintenance of unauthorized records. He was functional despite his refusal to fully detach. He was guilty. The evidence was absolute. The charge was valid. I had to sentence him. I had 3 options: execution, immediate, final, removing the problem completely; servitorization, converting him to mindless function, removing his consciousness while preserving his physical utility; enforcement labor, reduction in rank, reassignment to non-judgment duties, mark on permanent record. All 3 options destroyed him. Execution and servitorization destroyed his body. Enforcement labor destroyed his purpose while preserving the awareness that had made the notebook necessary. There was no good choice, only degrees of harm. I thought of Castellan Wolf. I had tried to show mercy and sent him to die in a war zone. I had chosen the option that made me feel better while accomplishing the same outcome as execution. I could do the same here. I could assign enforcement labor. Loken would live. He would be removed from processing duty. He would exist. But he had said he would rather be broken than accept the system. If I preserved his life while removing his function, I would force him to exist as evidence of the system's victory. He would live knowing he had been defeated. Or I could assign execution. Clean, final, immediate. He would die knowing he had refused to accept. He would die intact. Or I could assign servitorization. His body would continue. His consciousness would be destroyed. He would become the thing he had fought against becoming, pure function without awareness. All 3 options were cruelty. I looked at Loken. He looked back. His eyes were very green, very clear. He was not afraid. He had known this would happen. He had chosen the notebook knowing it would eventually be found. He had chosen to maintain his testimony knowing the cost. He had made his choice. Now I had to make mine. I chose mercy. I chose the mercy he had defined for himself. Sentence is execution by bolt pistol, I said. Immediate. The prisoner has demonstrated irreconcilable psychological deviation incompatible with Arbites' function. Preservation through servitorization or labor reduction would only extend the dysfunction. Clean termination is appropriate. The system processed the sentence. Green light. Approved. Loken closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. He looked at me and nodded once. Acknowledgement. Perhaps gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. The enforcement officers released the restraint frame. They took his arms to escort him to the execution chamber. I was required to witness. Protocol demanded the sentencing arbitrator confirm execution completion. I walked to the execution chamber. Loken walked ahead of me, flanked by officers. His movements were steady. He did not resist. They locked him to the restraint post. The mechanized bolt pistol positioned itself against the base of his skull. He turned his head slightly, looked back at me. His eyes found mine. "It mattered," he said, "that we questioned. Even though it changed nothing. It mattered." "Yes," I said. The bolt pistol fired. His head came apart. The body collapsed. The reclamation chute opened. The servitors dragged him away. The entire sequence required 11 seconds. I stood at the chamber entrance. I logged the execution as complete. I noted the timestamp, hour 7, evening shift, day 147 of my 38th month of service. I had executed 4,240 people. Loken was number 4,241. I returned to my station. Another prisoner was waiting in the restraint frame. I reviewed the case file. Theft, age 31. Confession obtained. I processed the case. 4 minutes. Standard sentence. The prisoner was taken away. I processed 73 cases that shift. I returned to my cell. I carved a mark under my bunk, one execution of fellow arbitrator. Then I sat on the floor and stared at nothing. I had killed the only person in the fortress who remembered I was still Thomas beneath Arbitrator Novitiate 4427, Tertius, Hive, Secundus. I had killed him as mercy, because he had asked me to, with his words and his choices and his final look. I had chosen correctly. He would have preferred clean death to servitorization or reduction. I had chosen to kill my only friend because it was the kindest option available. This is what the system reduces you to. Killing the people you care about becomes an act of mercy. I did not cry. I do not think I remembered how. I sat on the floor until hour 3. Then I lay on my cot and stared at the ceiling until shift start. I returned to processing chamber 17. Station 47. The lectern still bore the name carved by the previous arbitrator, Marcus, and the number 87,449. I now understood what it counted. Total cases processed by all arbitrators assigned to this station. Accumulation. Testimony. I began processing. Hour 6. Morning shift. A man. Age 27. Charge. Unlicensed assembly. Sentence. 3 months labor reclamation. A woman. Age 45. Charge. Failure to meet work quota. Sentence. Augmentation and continued service. A boy. Age 14. Charge. Theft. Sentence. 10 lashes. Mark on record. I processed them all, 4 minutes each. Efficient. Detached. I no longer had anyone to speak truth to during rest periods. Loken was gone. Helm was transferred. I was alone in my awareness. This should have made it easier. Without external testimony, I could have allowed my awareness to fade. I could have accepted the system and become pure function. But I could not. Loken had died believing it mattered that we questioned. If I stopped questioning now, his death would mean I had been wrong. That consciousness of complicity was not even marginally better than unconscious participation. That his testimony had been worthless. I could not let his death be worthless. So I continued questioning. I continued counting. I continued carrying the awareness that I was a component of an atrocity machine. I did this alone. Months accumulated. I processed 230,000 cases, 7,418 executions, 14,312 servitorizations. The numbers grew until they stopped meaning anything except accumulation. I am in my 9th year of service now. I process approximately 75 cases per shift. I have condemned 12,893 people to death, 27,406 to servitorization, approximately 347,000 total cases. I no longer remember most of their faces. They have compressed into statistical aggregate. But I remember Petran Voss saying, "My children were hungry." I remember Corvus Dane's smile. I remember Sarah Vex saying Matthias and Petir. I remember Castellan Vorth's pity. I remember the boy asking why thinking was a crime. I remember Loken's green eyes and his notebook and his final words, "It mattered." These few memories persist when hundreds of thousands have faded. I do not know why these specifically. Perhaps because they represent the spectrum of what the system destroys: need, conviction, love, innocence, resistance, consciousness. Perhaps I remember them because someone must. I am Station 47 now. I have been here long enough that new arbitrators look to me as example of sustained function. They observe my efficiency. They note my processing time. They do not know that I maintain illegal counts under my bunk. They do not know that I still remember what we are. They see successful adaptation. They see an arbitrator who has survived 9 years without breaking. They try to emulate me. I am teaching the next generation how to become efficient monsters. This is my complicity now. Not just processing cases, but demonstrating to others that processing is sustainable, that you can condemn thousands to death and continue existing, that the system can be endured. I am proof that resistance is unnecessary because accommodation is possible. Some nights I carve the count under my bunk and think about stopping. Not stopping processing that would accomplish nothing except my own destruction and replacement, but stopping the count, stopping the testimony, allowing myself to forget. I could become like Helm. Hollowed function that persists without hope. I could stop carrying the weight. I could accept the system as inevitable and release the tension of consciousness. This would be easier. I do not do it. I continue counting. I continue remembering. I continue questioning, even though the questions have no answers. I do this because Lokan died believing it mattered. I do this because someone must witness what the Imperium does to maintain order. I do this because if I stop, if I accept completely, then they will have won. The system will have consumed me entirely. I will be nothing but function. This is all I have left, the knowledge that I am still capable of recognizing horror even as I perpetuate it. This is not nobility. This is not resistance. This is just extended suffering with testimony. But it is what remains to me. I am Arbitrator Novitiate 4427, Tertius, Hive, Secundus. I was Tomas once, but that name is corrupted file now, rarely accessed. I process 75 cases per shift in Processing Chamber 17, Station 47, Precinct Fortress, Validus. I have killed 12,893 people by direct sentence. I have destroyed 27,406 others through servitorization. I have processed 347,000 total cases across 9 years. The city functions, order persists, crime is processed at a rate sufficient to prevent systematic collapse. The cost is counted in human lives rendered to statistical aggregate. I am one of 480 arbitrators maintaining this order. We process 10,000 arrests daily. We cannot provide actual trials. We cannot investigate thoroughly. We cannot ensure justice. We can only process efficiently and hope the system's errors are distributed randomly rather than systematically targeting the innocent. We know the system is flawed. We continue anyway, because the alternative is chaos. Justice is sacrificed for order. Thousands of innocents die. The city functions. This is what the Imperium is. Machinery that consumes human meaning and outputs continued existence. We are not judges. We are executioners with administrative duties. I knew this in my first week. I have known it for 9 years. I continue anyway. This is my testimony. I do not know who will hear it. Perhaps no one. Perhaps when I die, my counts will be discovered and burned as evidence of psychological compromise. Perhaps this record will end with me. But I have witnessed. I have counted. I have refused to forget. I am complicit. I am aware. I am participating in atrocity while maintaining the knowledge that it is atrocity. This is the only integrity available to me, continuing to function while refusing the comfort of acceptance. I am a monster who knows he is a monster. I exist. I process. I remember temperature first, 37 degrees in the Scholar dormitory, exactly 37. I am not anymore. But I remember that I was. That memory is all that remains of who I used to be. It is not enough, but it is what I have, and I will carry it until I break, or die, or forget. I log the timestamp, hour 6, morning shift, day 94 of my 9th year. I process the next case.